U.S. payrolls were revised lower by 818,000 jobs for the year ending March 2024. The figure came in on the upper end of economist estimates. The fresh data also comes ahead of an expected rate cut this fall. And it could fuel more uncertainty about the health of the labor market, and Americans themselves are seeing their own job prospects potentially decline. 70% of employees are bracing for layoffs, according to a MarketWatch survey. And so if you're part of that majority, we're breaking down how you should prepare for potential unemployment. To discuss, let's bring in Blair Duquesne, who is the Ritholtz Wealth Management Investment Advisor. Blair, great to have you here on the program with us. All right, not fun to talk about layoffs and unemployment, but all the more important for preparedness as well. What is step one for how people, if they do find themselves as no longer part of the labor force or temporarily out of the labor force, can do to ensure that there's a pathway back in and that on the financial side, they're managing their prospects and their finances correctly too?
Yes, and thank you for having me, Brad. I'm sorry we have to talk about such a downer topic, but it is good to be prepared in advance. Rules of thumb for financial planning are you want to have at least 3 to 6 months of your living expenses in a cash reserve. That's cash savings in the bank, not invested in markets, not locked up in CDs. You want to have that cash available. I know a lot of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, but the time to prepare is before the layoff happens, right? So ideally, the 3 to 6 months in a cash reserve would be the goal that we're looking to accomplish.
Certainly, and as we're taking a look at some of those tips on the screen here right now, a lot of people may be wondering, okay, what are some of the most vulnerable sectors right now that we're seeing in terms of the layoffs that have already come forward and those that are anticipated?
Yeah, so with an economic downturn, pretty much every sector of the economy is going to be impacted. I would look to the areas where maybe there was a little bit of overhiring in the job spree that we had post-pandemic. Obviously, we saw some layoffs in the tech sector a couple of years ago with the downturn in the market. But I think everybody should be prepared in case of a job loss because an economic downturn does hit everybody.
And so with that in mind, I mean, as we're continuing to watch the labor market here, the unemployment rate and the overall monthly jobs gained, jobs added, that's typically that headline figure. But where else should people be really pouring into and looking through these reports to get a sense of the health beyond those headline numbers?
Well, the job market has softened quite a bit. It was way too tight a couple of years ago, but it's still strong. Our unemployment rate is still at fairly low levels compared to the historic analysis. So you got to look inside your industry and see, where cuts may be coming. But the good news is, we've got a strong economy right now. It might be softening, but you'd rather probably get laid off earlier in the cycle than later because the chances of finding a job pretty quickly now are pretty high.
And so with that in mind, finding a job, getting back into the workforce, what is the thing that people should remember as they're looking to reestablish themselves within the workforce?
Personal networks, I think, are the key today. Their resumes are a dime a dozen. Spray and pray. If we list jobs on the internet, you're going to get thousands of applicants. It's really hard to stand out. So I do think that hand-to-hand combat, working through your personal network to try to find jobs, is probably going to be the way to go.
Blair Duquesne, who is the Ritholtz Wealth Management Investment Advisor. Thanks so much for taking the time here with us, Blair. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.